Alright gang, so today we have on the bench a 19-inch Hantarex MTC-900E. And this was just dropped off to me from a friend up in Kansas City who bought out an old operator's warehouse, and he brought me 7 different monitors. If we look over here, we've got a 4600, a K4600, and a Sharp 1801 out of a red tint, a K7000, a K4900, and 2 G07s. These ones over here are mine from other stuff I'm doing, but and the 2 G07s have loose chassis, which are over there. So we've got 7 monitors here that we're going to be working on here very soon, so some good content coming hopefully. But this one, as you can see, is operating and running just fine, but it didn't start out that way. This was totally, completely, 100% dead. It did absolutely nothing when you turned it on. So you'd first think, well, okay, it's a bad fuse, but no, there's 2 fuses, they both check good, and I was kind of chomping at the bit to try and figure out why would this be totally dead. And I kind of got ahead of myself, and I intended to make a video, but I started working on, okay, I'll test this, test that, test this, test that. And I went down a big rabbit hole. Next thing you know, I've got a halfway apart and wires removed and all kinds of stuff. I ended up finding the problem and got everything adjusted and working and looking fine. So we're going to be going back through over this and do a review of what I found and what can cause these chassis to be completely and totally dead. So I wanted to show it working here beforehand. It's a fantastic, beautiful picture. It doesn't really need recaps, but we're going to go ahead and recap it and reflow and all that. I don't have a cap kit on hand, a pre-made cap kit, but I should have all the caps up here in the stash to be able to do this. So I'll do all the rebuild on it, except of course the flybacks. I don't even know if a flyback is available for one of these, but we'll do the reflow and the cap kit and all the normal stuff just so we can see that it's working beforehand. In case something goes wrong, we'll know that it was something I did. But we'll also take it off the tube here and go over some highlights and talk about what the problem was and why this was totally dead. So here we go. Alright, so here it is off the tube, and let's go over what I found and what I did to fix this. Now, I'll say that a lot of the Hantarex Polo parts are interchangeable with this one, and we'll talk about that here in a moment as to what the source of the issue was and how I fixed it. But when I first got this, like I said, completely, totally dead. So the first thing to do was check the fuses. There's 2 fuses over here, and they checked fine. So at that point, you start with the AC coming into the chassis, which was about 128. So we had that coming into the connector. We had it flowing through the fuses, flowing through the main input cap here, through the rectifier diodes, and then you can go to the filter cap, and reading across the filter cap right here, I had 173 volts DC. So I knew it was all going through from the connector all the way through to the filter cap. And then it runs through a bunch of diodes and things like that. It gets through a number of transistors. These 3 transistors here, and then it ends up here at this R24. So at this side of R24 here, we've got 170, I think it was 173 volts DC, which is our B+. It also goes here to SP15, which is this red wire. And the red wire comes over here and feeds this side of the board. So there's 2 separate sides to this board. There's different versions of the Hantarex MTC-900, but this one is an MTC-900E. You can see right there. Now I believe there's 3 different versions of this, and they all have 2 separate boards. There's basically a power supply board and what's the word? The deflection boards. I just lost it out of my head there for a moment. So there's a deflection board side and a power supply side. And there's these little interconnect cables here. There's 4 of them. There's 2 down here, 1 there, and 1 there for a total of 4. Now the B+ side of things, the only connection between the deflection side and the power supply side is this red wire here. This is the wire that feeds the 173 volts, or actually a B+. The unregulated is 173. The regulated side is the 115. The B+ on the E version is supposed to be 115 volts, and you adjust that by this pot right here. Here's your B+ pot. So you put your lead on SP15 right there, and you go to ground on the frame. You should adjust your B+ to 115 volts DC. But without an output to the rest of the board being unregulated, it's about 173. So you take the red wire, you can either remove it, I recommend removing it from this side of the chassis as opposed to this side. If you take the red wire out of here, it could flop around and short something out. So you can remove SP15 from the power supply side of the board and get rid of it. And then you can test to make sure you've got your 173 volts unregulated. And you can do your light bulb test. So there's a couple ways, like I say, you can do this. You can take the red wire out of this side and touch it to the center of your bulb and touch it to your frame, and the bulb should light up. That's how you do your light bulb test. As a matter of fact, we can do that. Let's see. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. There's two ways to do this. Take the wire out of here and what I just mentioned, or you can take the wire out of here and then attach an alligator clip to this side of R24 and do it that way. I recommend doing it that way because, like I say, if you take this out of here and it touches something, you could short something out. So I take it out of here, that way we don't have to worry about that. And I take an alligator clip and clip it to the side of R24 right here and go to the frame, and that's our light bulb test. So if you have one of these that's dead and you want to do a light bulb test, here's how you do it. So let's get this out of here like so. Boop. There we go. Now that's safe to just throw out of the way here. And this is the only connection you really need to worry about between the power supply and the deflection side. So with this out of here, the power supply, this side should not power up. So if we get our meter and we hook up our meter, let's grab a couple of alligator clips. We're going to need, I think, 2. And let's grab 3. Okay, so for the ground, we can just take our ground and clip it onto the frame. For our power, let's go to volts DC. We'll take the positive and clip that onto this leg of R24. Then we'll, oh, come on, you rat bastard. Okay, then we'll need to attach another lead here. Let's go over to this side, and this will be our lead that we touch to the light bulb. All right, so we should have 173-ish volts when I plug this in and turn it on. So let's see here, make sure we're not touching anything. All right, and that's free over here. Okay, 1, 2, 3. There you go, 173. Now if we touch this to the frame and touch our positive from that lead of R24 to the light bulb, what do we get? Boom. Now the 154, you know, this is not much of a load on the system. It's only 10 watts, a 10-watt bulb. So if you had a 100-watt bulb, it might be closer down to 115 or so, but our power supply is functional. I don't even really know if you can see. Let's try it this way. There you go. So we have a functional power supply system. That's how you do light bulb tests, to test your power supply on a Hantarex MTC-900. So let's turn this off, and here's an easier way. You saw me in the past doing these test sizes to kind of zap or discharge the power supply. Here's a much safer and better way to do it. So if we turn off you'll see the B+ bleed down when I turn this off. There you go. Now if we do this, it just, now we're, so you can use this to load down the system to drain that. And the rest of it, you can just tap this and it goes down to 0. So there you go, light bulb test on the Hantarex MTC-900. Okay, now that it's discharged, we can kind of set all this aside and take our red wire and put it back in our connection here. And it's always fun trying to do this because it never lines up properly and you got to push it through and all that jazz. Okay, that'll work. Let's double check. Nah, need to add a bit more to it. That's better. Okay, happy with that. All right, let's make sure we have continuity just to verify the splice, or the, I keep saying splice, SP15 on, regular schematics or a splice point, but so I keep referring to it as splice point. And that comes over to this one. Okay. Let's test to make sure the trace is proper. Yeah, that goes over. All right, so yeah, let's go over now what the solution to the problem was. So after determining, I'm sorry, let me go back. First I thought I might have had a bad voltage regulator. It tested okay in circuit. It tested okay out of circuit, but just to rule it out that it was failing under load, I removed it, and the original one is a TIPL751. And I put a 2N 3055 in there, which is a valid replacement, and you saw it operating and works just fine with it. So you can use a 2N 3055 in place of this TIPL751, and it'll work. So I might put this one back in. I don't know. It remains to be seen because it should be okay. But you saw it operating with the 3055, so I thought that might have been bad. I also changed out the filter cap, thinking the filter cap might have been the problem, but it wasn't, so I put the original one back in. And again, you saw it working just fine. So yeah, let's go over the actual problem. I talk about how it needs capped and reflowed. Someone did a cap kit, but I don't know how long ago it was, and they missed a couple of them. And it really doesn't need a cap kit because it looks pretty good. So I'm hesitant to replace all the caps. All these caps here that have the little line on it, like that's been changed. All these ones with the lines of all the caps have been replaced except for this one. That's the original one. And this one over there hasn't been changed. And this one's been changed as well, but they didn't mark it. So I've only counted, I think, 2 caps that haven't been replaced. So in hindsight here, since it has a good picture and doesn't really need capped, I may just change out these 2 that haven't been changed and call it good. I think that's probably the way I'm going to go. I was originally going to change them all because I don't know when these were changed, but they're all Nichicon, they're all good quality. So I may just change out these 2 and call it okay. All right, enough beating around the bush here, so to speak. The problem was I wasn't getting any high voltage to the horizontal circuit. The horizontal, if you don't have a functional horizontal deflection circuit, the chassis won't do anything. So the 173 volts, the unregulated B plus, was not getting to the horizontal side, and that ended up being due to a bad transformer. Now, I think I even may have a video on a Hantarex Polo that has this exact same problem. I've encountered this problem twice, this exact same problem with the exact same solution. I've encountered it twice on the Hantarex Polo. And with this being a Hantarex as well, with the same components, I mean, even the horizontal linearity coil is identical. I went and looked at this transformer here, this TH2. Now, I don't know, honestly, if it's a choke or if it's a transformer. Somebody else out there who knows more can chime in. But this transformer here has 2 windings on it, TH2. There is an input winding and an output winding. The input winding, I believe, is on this side. You can see there's an image of a winding here and a winding here. I believe this is the input side, this is the output side. So the problem was the input side was open. When I took the meter and read across the output side, I had 0. Well, let me see if I can show this in camera here, or in frame. All right, so when I read the output side here that goes off to the horizontal output side, I had 0 ohms. So that winding was good. But when I read this winding, it was open. I had no reading at all, 0. And as you see, it's supposed to be about 70. It's between 25 or 23 and 73, give or take. But this winding was open. And as you can see now, it's not. It's reading the proper 73 ohms. So that component was not only corroded, but it had an open leg. And I tried to repair the leg. The wire had busted, or had corroded off of the leg of the wire had corroded itself off of the leg. I don't even know if you can see that. And when I tried to solder it back together, the entire thing just completely crumbled and fell apart in my hand. So this thing was all corroded and falling apart and dingy and brittle, and just from years and years of heat over the years, from running that voltage through the B plus to the HOT side or the horizontal side, it just decided to corrode and disintegrate itself. And I probably could have saved it, but it was just, it's broken internally, and the glue fell apart, and it's garbage. So the open winding on the input side was the cause of no voltage getting to our horizontal output circuit. And after replacing this from a donor Hantarex Polo, took one out of a Polo, put it in here, and the thing fired right up. Got it all adjusted and looking and working great. So this thing was totally dead because of a bad open winding on the input side of the TH2 transformer or choke. Like I say, I'm not sure what it is. But yeah, I was going to say quick and easy repair, but it wasn't quick and easy because I spent like an hour isolating the power supply side versus this stuff. And just going off of my previous experience with the Hantarex Polo having the completely dead option as well, I went to this and sure enough, same problem. Sorry, zoom out here, sorry. Sure enough, same problem. So that's all it was. And I think they missed this capacitor as well. I forgot about that one. This one's original, absolutely. So I'm going to change out those 3 capacitors, go through and do some reflow, and turn it back on. If it works, we'll call this repaired. And again, I'll show you how to measure and set the B+. You can just put a lead here on SP15 right there, and negative lead on ground, positive lead on SP15. Adjust your B+ as necessary. On the E version should be 115, which I've already done, and you adjust it obviously at the pot. And yeah, so if you got a completely dead one of these, I would remove your red wire here. Make sure you've got a good working power supply. If so, you know your problem's on this side, whether it's an HOT issue or a TH2. I would highly suspect the TH2 if you have a dead one of these and your power supply is good. Now I do like this one because it has a lot of other pots that a lot of 19-inch ones don't, except for the K7000 basically. So you have your vertical size here, which they refer to as vertical amp, which is common across the Hantarex. Vertical amp is vertical size, vertical hold, vertical linearity, vertical position, horizontal position, horizontal hold, contrast, and brightness, and of course you have your normal screen voltage and focus. And vertical IC is right here, HOT is over here, voltage regulator is over there. If you ever get confused on a chassis as to where which transistor is the HOT and which one is voltage regulator, the HOT is always going to be closer to the flyback, and the voltage regulator is always going to be closer to your B+ resistor. So the voltage regulator is going to be directly attached to your big ceramic B+ resistor. So there's not really any way you can screw it up. It's always going to be close to the resistor for a voltage regulator, and always going to be close to flyback for your HOT. So, and again, same linearity coil for horizontal as the Hantarex Polo, same, same width coil, but as I say that, there is, yeah, so the width coil is here. There's no horizontal size adjustment. Yeah, on the Hantarex Polo, you have a horizontal size adjustment. On the MTC-900, you don't. I guess you have to adjust it using the coil, so we can play around with that if we need to. But yeah, all right, so let me get these 3 caps changed out, give everything else a good look over, even though I've already done it. I'll do some reflow, and then we'll test it one more time and call this a quick and easy video here. So, bad TH2. Crazy. Okay, so we're all reflowed. We got the 3 caps changed out, got the good inspection done, so everything is good to go. We have our meter set up here to read our B+. Again, we're looking for it to be around 115 volts. We got our red lead on the SP12, I think it was. And we should, if you need to adjust it again, the pot right there is where you adjust it, but it's already adjusted to 115 from previous testing. We have our ground hooked up to the frame. So this should fire up here again. We should get 115 and it should be good. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3. Yes, comes on, and 114.9. Oh, 115.0. You can't beat that. And voila. So, yep, all this needed was a good reflow, a good inspection, and a new TH2. This destroyed guy right there. So, yeah, lesson learned. If you got a dead Polo, of whether it's a, I'm sorry, not Polo, dead Hantarex, whether it's Polo or the MTC, check TH2. I think I've said that about 3 or 4 times now, but I like to reiterate. And we'll have to skip past this here and It's a bit dark, but and needs a little degaussing, but not a big deal. We can turn up our brightness back here on this adjustment right there, and there you go. A little bit of contrast. Actually, contrast is good. Let's hit the screen pot here a bit. Let's adjust our screen pot. That's better. Okay, yeah, I think that'll work. Awesome. All right, so thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned something. Like, share, and subscribe. And like I say, we got 6 other monitors here behind me, so no end to content here soon. And otherwise, I appreciate it. Thanks very much.